look, we have a big conference realignment report, and I've honestly kind of buried it here. And we're going to work our way to it in the midst of some shots levied at the Big 12 by Rhett Lashley, SMU's head coach. Okay. So you'll be a little fired up, but we're going to come back, and that's the shot. The chaser will be sobering realignment news for the ACC. Okay. So ACC Media Days was going on this week as well. Big Ten took more of the spotlight because they're taking big shots from everybody nationally in college football right now. And the problem here for the ACC is that, like, they made some good points in fighting for their conference right now, but the ACC like can't ever get out of its own way. And so at the same time that they're fighting for good points, we get a pretty big like realignment report that's obviously negative for the future of the ACC. So let's start with this. I forgot I'm going to try to play these comments for you from Rhett Lashley. I will try to play these comments. Actually, I might not be able to, guys, without getting flagged by YouTube. Let me just tell you that Rhett Lashley said, quote, "There's no question that our league has separated itself as one of the top 3 leagues in America." Okay, that's obviously a shot at the Big 12. And he points out that all the national champions in the sport since the year 1990, when Colorado won the Big 12, are in the SEC, the Big 10, or the ACC. Now, we can talk about Messenger. What has SMU done since 1990? But look, he's right. I mean, that's a valid point. This is the whole thing. With the ACC. They have some good, valid points here because they have some big brands. I mean, look, Clemson is going to be maybe not an overwhelming favorite to win the national championship this year, but Clemson is going to be projected by many to win the national title. Certainly a team that can be in the playoff. And Florida State has won national championships, right? Shout out to Jimbo. Probably should have played for at least a playoff appearance a couple of years ago. Got screwed out of it. These are big brands that have won big time. Miami. Yeah, it's a little tougher case to make these days because, Ray Lewis isn't walking through that door. But you get the point. Like, Miami's been a huge brand. North Carolina is a coveted realignment piece. Like, the ACC has some really nice pieces. But the ACC also completely lacks stability. And so right as you have this point being made by Rhett Lashley, you have a report coming out from inside Carolina about North Carolina being interested in a potential departure from the ACC and could be, quote, considered at the front of the pack alongside Clemson in trying to get to the SEC. That is, quote, where the Tar Heels are aiming. And it mentions 2030 as the target date there, quote, if the Tar Heels haven't made their departure sooner. So that settlement, right, reduced the buyout costs. And most of the speculation has been about 2030 when it goes down to its ultimate lowest level. But this is now insinuating that North Carolina could be leaving even before that. So it's further evidence that the ACC is not stable at all. They're still very much looking at their biggest brands leaving in 2030, if not sooner. And this report gets dropped on them as coaches like Rhett Lashley are up there at the podium trying to make this point about, like, hey, look at us. We're great. We're one of the top 3 leagues. We should separate. We should separate from the Big 12. Don't lump us in with that. That's the ACC in a nutshell. And it's kind of fascinating. It's a fairly fascinating place for the league to be in right now. You could also just point to their unequal revenue sharing that's going on right now as a lever of instability, because it definitely is. Anybody in the Big 12 knows how that has worked in the past. It's typically not something that keeps your conference very stable. Now, I would also point out that Rhett Lashley is 2-6 against the Big 12 and 8-2 against the ACC as the head coach at SMU. So maybe, again, Messenger taking a shot at the Big 12. Not the greatest thing in the world, since he has struggled more in that department than he has against the ACC. But, you get the idea. Obviously, we know what happened against BYU. BYU at home last year. That was better win than Miami had to relitigate the whole playoff fiasco that BYU didn't get any consideration. Let me give this, though, to Rhett Lashley. He did have one interesting point here. Okay, one interesting point. Rhett Lashley advocated for a different playoff proposal that did have all the auto bids. So, I mean, it still is basically a non-starter for me and for most. Okay, but how would you guys feel about this? I am interested in how you guys would feel about this. Rhett Lashley says he wants a 4-4-4-3-1 playoff format. So that is a 16-team playoff that would have 4 auto bids for the Big Ten, 4 for the SEC, 4 for the ACC, 3 for the Big 12, and 1 for a G5, and Notre Dame would have access to one of those 4 ACC spots. So if you think that Notre Dame would be in the top 16 most years, then it kind of is like a 4-4-3-3-1. It's like a slight bump to the ACC over the Big 12 there. But you would get 3 auto bids for the Big 12 and 4 for the ACC, 4 for everybody else. So that again becomes more tempting because like your place in the college football world, you're pulling pretty close there, and you're not dealing with at-large bids, which then would give the SEC and Big Ten like more unlimited potential to jump you in terms of teams in the playoff. You got more chances, you have more opportunities there. That is really tough to pass up when you're thinking about how that would play out over the next 5 years versus what like a 5-11 would look like. But again, the problem is the whole idea that we started this with, turning it into more of a like professional sports kind of environment, system, etc. It is definitely doing that. And look, if you believe Brett Yormark is principled in his stance here on 5+11 being that like, hey, we're not going to do it. And we're not going to do it because this is not what college sports is supposed to be about. And like what he said at the podium about Petiti, this is not professional sports. I suppose you have to assume he would not take part in that plan. It was just Rhett Lashley that was saying it, not necessarily the entire ACC. So I don't know if they would fall in line. I don't know how Jim Phillips would feel about it. Would he totally fall in line? I don't know. But that was intriguing, where I was like, hey, that's a pretty interesting hypothetical to throw up there. Now, I'll take this from Al and say ACC and Big 12 don't have a vote. They don't. Great to see Al Bundy actually in the chat. Al Bundy, celebrity in the chat. They don't technically have a vote. You are correct. But one of the things that's been threatened is legal action from the ACC and the Big 12 if the SEC and Big 10 didn't abide by, I forget the specific wording in the contract, but basically they have to give them legitimate input, and they have to be a part of discussions and give legitimate input to everybody else. And there's been threatened legal action if the 4-4-2-2 thing was just going to be shoved down everybody's throat, and to say that, hey, Big 12 and ACC didn't get a fair shot at actually impacting the discussion. So I think that is at least open the door for a little bit more influence from the ACC and Big 12, even if they don't have that actual theoretical voting power. They don't have it's not written out that they get a vote. You are correct. I just wanted to make sure and clarify that. And you may well have been aware of that too, Al, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. So anyway, in conclusion, the ACC is in a weird spot. We just get more and more confirmation every day, like that Inside Carolina report, that the big brands are going to be gone. Next question becomes, do they hold up? Do they stay together after that? If you guys watched my, actually, I don't know that one's come out yet. I've got another video with TJ Pittenger from College Sports Addiction and Double Fries No Slaw, big Florida State guy. You should go check out his College Football Addiction channel, by the way, even if you're not a Florida State fan, that's all college football. But he was really making the point that, like, hey, ACC could actually stick together, especially if they're going to keep the unequal revenue sharing. Then your second tier brands could become your first tier brands and maybe make more money there than they would in the Big 12. Creates an interesting scenario if and when those big brands leave the ACC as to what everybody else would do. Would they keep the conference together or not? So that was enough to make me think, hey, I mean, maybe there's a better chance of the ACC surviving. But then at that point, we're definitely down to like okay, the Big 12 may well be in better position as a conference for sure then if all those big brands are leaving. So that to me was probably the most interesting piece of ACC Media Days.